In the shadow of Arthur's Seat, one of Edinburgh's most famous hills, lies the Royal Mile, a street steeped in history, folklore and mystery. The cobblestones, worn by centuries of footsteps, have absorbed countless tales, but none are as eerie or whispered about as the legend of the Piper of the Grey Mile. The story begins in the early 18th century, when the city of Edinburgh was much smaller, and beneath its streets lay a labyrinth of tunnels, caverns, and catacombs. Some were natural, carved by time and the elements, while others were dug by human hands, used for smuggling, hiding, or escaping the authorities. These underground passages were treacherous, their winding routes uncharted. No one dared venture too far into them, for fear of getting lost forever. One foggy autumn evening, a group of city elders, intrigued by rumors of these underground mazes, decided to explore one of the tunnels said to stretch from Holyrood Palace at the base of the Royal Mile to the ancient castle at the top. They enlisted the help of a young piper, a local lad named Aidan McTavish, known for his bravery and skill with the pipes. The plan was simple. Aidan would descend into the tunnel, playing his bagpipes as he went. Above ground, the elders would follow the sound, tracing the route from above and mapping the hidden tunnel. Aidan, proud to be chosen for such a task, eagerly agreed. Armed with only his bagpipes and a torch, he descended into the black maw of the tunnel, his haunting tunes filling the air. Above ground, the elders walked along the Royal Mile, listening to the melody. For a while, everything went according to plan. The sound of the pipes echoed faintly beneath their feet as they traced Aidan's progress beneath the street. But as Aidan ventured deeper into the tunnel, something strange happened. The music began to grow faint, not due to distance, but as though it were being swallowed by the earth itself. The elders paused, straining to hear. Then, as suddenly as it had faded, the sound of the pipes stopped altogether. The elders waited in silence, hoping for the music to resume. But the only sound was the wind whistling through the narrow alleyways. Panic set in. They called Aidan's name, but no reply came from the depths. Fearing the worst, they hurried to the entrance of the tunnel, expecting to find Aidan emerging, but he never did. Search parties were sent into the tunnel the next day, but Aidan was never found. The tunnel stretched on for miles, too dangerous to fully explore, and it was eventually sealed. The city elders, ashamed of their recklessness, covered up the story, claiming Aidan had simply run away. But the people of Edinburgh did not forget. For years after, on certain misty nights, passers-by claimed to hear faint bagpipe music drifting up from beneath the Royal Mile. The haunting melody, they said, was Aidan's pipes, playing from the underworld. The locals began to call the stretch of the Royal Mile where the sound was heard the Grey Mile, after the color of the mist that often enveloped the street at dusk. As the years passed, the legend grew. Some said Aidan had been lured deeper into the earth by something ancient and malevolent that dwelled in the tunnels. Others believed he had crossed into a different realm, a place where time and space folded in on themselves, leaving him forever trapped between worlds. There were even whispers that Aidan's spirit had become one with the tunnel, his soul playing its mournful tune for eternity, warning others to stay away from the hidden catacombs beneath the city. The most terrifying part of the legend, however, was the belief that Aidan wasn't alone in the tunnels. Over the years, several people had disappeared near the entrance to the sealed-off tunnel. Strangely, all of them were musicians. Some were street performers who played along the Royal Mile, while others were tourists drawn by the legend itself. All vanished without a trace, leaving only the eerie sound of bagpipes in the air. In the late 19th century, during a particularly cold and foggy October, a famous violinist named Samuel Ferguson arrived in Edinburgh for a performance. He was fascinated by local legends and upon hearing of the Piper of the Grey Mile, became obsessed with the idea of exploring the tunnel himself. Despite warnings from locals, he insisted that it was all nonsense and that the tale was merely an exaggerated ghost story. One evening, after a few too many drinks at a nearby tavern, Ferguson, with his violin slung over his shoulder, marched to the entrance of the tunnel, which had been sealed with an iron grate many years earlier. His friends, too inebriated to stop him, watched as he pried the grate open with a crowbar and descended into the blackness. As Ferguson entered the tunnel, he began to play his violin, the notes bouncing off the stone walls in an eerie harmony. His friends, now sober with fear, stood at the entrance, waiting for the sound of his music to return. But just like Aidan before him, Ferguson's music grew fainter and fainter until it vanished altogether. Terrified, his friends called out to him, but there was no answer. For hours they waited, but Ferguson never returned. The next day, the city sealed the tunnel once again, this time with concrete, and made sure no one could ever enter it again. To this day, on certain foggy nights, locals claim they can still hear the faint strains of bagpipes mixed with the haunting sound of a violin playing from deep beneath the Royal Mile. The legend of the Piper of the Grey Mile lives on, a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurk beneath Edinburgh's ancient streets. Some say that Aidan and Ferguson are still down there, wandering the endless tunnels, forever playing their instruments, calling to anyone foolish enough to listen. Others believe that the music is a warning, a signal to stay away from the cursed labyrinth that has claimed so many lives. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain: the Piper's music once heard is never forgotten, and those who hear it are never the same again.